my name is Shireen and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the Protini Polypeptide Cream from Drunk Elephant. This is my favorite moisturizer. I'm on my second container so far, but I wanted to talk about it today, not because it's my favorite moisturizer, but because it has some really interesting ingredients in it. So I really wanted to analyze those ingredients, look up research about them, see what it's really about, and tell you guys about it. So it's called the Protini Polypeptide Cream because it has lots of polypeptides in it and also individual amino acids. So polypeptides are amino acids attached to each other via peptide bonds. These form proteins. That's not a super common ingredient in moisturizers. I'm not going to, venture to say that it's the only moisturizer that has those ingredients. It's probably not that novel. I haven't really looked into it, but I've looked at the ingredients of a bunch of other moisturizers and they don't have this in them. That said, as I actually got into the process of researching, I realized that it was hard to find research, and by that I mean peer-reviewed, found articles in journals, things where you know that you can trust it. What I did find lots of instead was patents claiming the use of these ingredients for various purposes and claiming that they do certain things like prevent wrinkles or reduce inflammation. There's definitely a scarcity of information for some of these ingredients, but I did my best. That does kind of suggest that what Drunk Elephant is doing is maybe a little cutting edge, and other people haven't really had the chance to test out if these ingredients work or not. I use a lot of Drunk Elephant products and I would say that I trust the brand. Of course, I wouldn't, blindly throw my support behind a product just because it has the Drunk Elephant label on it, but I'm just going to talk to you about my research and share what I know, and we'll go from there. Okay. Oh, and also, if you're curious about my makeup that I've got going on, I tried to do a teal eyeshadow look because the container is teal, and I tried to make it glossy because it's a moisturizer and that kind of relates to water because it hydrates your skin and water is glossy. Kind of a stretch, mostly just like a flex of my makeup skills, but I'm going to list all the products that I used to do my makeup in this video in the actual post if you're curious about it. If not, you can just scroll past that. As always, my sources are going to be included in the post if you want to fact check me or if you want to read some research papers or just, learn a little bit more about it yourself. Let's get into some of the more basic details about what the product is. So, as I said, this is the Protini Polypeptide Cream from Drunk Elephant, and you get 1.69 ounces or 50 milliliters in the container. That's pretty standard. It costs $68, so it's definitely on the expensive end for a moisturizer of this size. It says that it's good for normal, oily, combination, dry, and sensitive skin types, so that's every skin type possible from the Sephora website. And it is, and this is a direct quote from the Sephora website, a breakthrough protein moisturizer that combines an unprecedented array and concentration of actives for improvement in the appearance of skin's tone, texture, and firmness. And then it says that it provides solutions for loss of firmness and elasticity, dryness, and dullness and uneven texture. It says that it's formulated without parabens, sulfates, and phthalates, but you also won't find silicones, chemical sunscreens, sensitizing dyes, perfumes, or fragrance essential oils of any kind in their products. It doesn't say that it's gluten-free, so it probably has gluten. It also doesn't say that it's vegan. It's actually probably not vegan because when I was looking through the ingredients, some of them are typically sourced from animals. So before I get into the ingredients, I thought that I would talk a little bit about the texture. This actually comes in an airless jar, and that's good because it keeps the ingredients from degrading. So that's what it looks like once you take the lid off, and then to get some product out, you just press down here and it comes out. And I would say that it absorbs into the skin fairly quickly. It doesn't leave behind any kind of greasy residue. And then to compare it in terms of its thickness, it's definitely thicker than the Sunday Riley Brightening Enzyme Water Cream. The label on it is practically rubbed off because this is the moisturizer that I used to always use before I started using this. This one's definitely a thinner consistency. I would say that the Protini Polypeptide Cream is definitely thinner than the Laneige Water Bank Moisture Cream. Medium thickness / viscosity and texture, something that I'm pretty comfortable with wearing during the daytime. I'm comfortable wearing it under makeup because, like I said, it absorbs into the skin. You can see a little bit of a sheen on my skin, but you can't really tell that I put product on it before. Now moving into the portion where I talk about the ingredients. There are about 60 ingredients in here, so I can't reasonably go through every single one of them and do a detailed rundown of, you know, what each of them are and where they come from and what they do and like maybe the mechanism that they work and the structural analysis, all the things that I typically like to do. I think it would be irrational for me to try to do for this. So instead, I'm going to go through some of the more common ingredients and quickly classify them based on, you know, their general functions. And you might see some of them appear multiple times because they're listed as doing multiple things. And then I'm going to go into depth for some of the more unique ingredients so that you can learn more about what I thought makes this moisturizer special. So I'm going to start with the general definitions, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to list the general definition and then all of the ingredients in the product that fit the criteria for that function on the screen so you can reference it and learn about it. I'm not going to actually say the names of the ingredients because they'll be on the screen, and also because that's kind of boring. So anyway, the first category that I have here is preservatives. Preservatives are just there to keep the product from going bad so that it lasts a little bit longer. The second category is humectants, and humectants moisturize the skin. They do this in two different ways. They can draw in ambient moisture into the skin, which introduces more water into the skin, which is awesome. They can also draw water from the lower layer of skin, the dermis, into the epidermis, the upper layer of skin, which makes the upper layer look less flaky, softer, more moisturized, but kind of dries out your skin, which is less good. But how they work depends on, you know, how humid the air is. The third category are emollients or skin conditioning agents. So these prevent water loss from the skin by improving the skin's barrier. So this is in contrast with humectants, which try to draw water into the top layer of the skin, and this also helps make skin softer. The next category is emulsifiers. So emulsifiers facilitate the dissolution of nonpolar compounds into polar compounds. And whether something is polar is basically based on how it interacts with water. So you can think of nonpolar compounds as things like oils, and polar compounds as things like water or things that dissolve in water. So if you've ever had oil and water in a container, you notice that they're immiscible. What emulsifiers do is they form these micelle type structures where they trap the oils in the middle in tiny, tiny little globules. Oh, and the benefit of this is that you get all of the ingredients together. It's not like the jar is separated into the two and you have to shake it up every single time. They're pretty much evenly distributed throughout. The next category is solvents. So these are things that you dissolve other things in, and they're generally polar because this is mostly made of water, and water is polar. The next category is viscosity controllers. So these just determine how viscous something is. Some of these are increasing agents, some of them are decreasing agents. In fact, most of them are increasing agents, but I think there's one that's a decreasing agent. The next category is exfoliants. I was actually surprised to find any exfoliants in this at all, but it was basically lactic acid and glycolic acid. These are exfoliants that I actually have in my skincare routine. The next category is antioxidants. There's only one antioxidant in this, and antioxidants just take up free radicals. Free radicals are things that have an uneven charge, and they, you know, break other bonds in your skin because they're trying to balance out that charge, which is bad because it causes damage to your skin structure. So next category is occlusives. Occlusives form a lipid barrier to prevent water loss. This is somewhat similar to how emollients work. And then the final category is fragrances. There is only one compound that exclusively seems to do this. It has a faint fragrance, but not one that I noticed up until I decided to sniff it just now. That's interesting because it says that it's free of perfumes or fragrant essential oils. The compound that I have listed as a fragrance is not an essential oil, but I guess it's not classified as a perfume. I'm not really sure what constitutes a perfume. Now I'm going to step into a different category. These are ingredients that I couldn't so readily classify in one of those, I think it was 6 or 7 categories, handful of categories. These are the ones that are some more interesting research. These ones are a little bit more unique to the product. You don't find them in every moisturizer. The first ingredient under this category is Nymphea alba root extract. This is also known as water lily extract. There wasn't a lot of research about this ingredient, but there were a lot of patents filed by different people over about a decade for skin smoothing purposes, anti-inflammatory purposes, as a skin softener, and for anti-aging purposes. So water lily root extract seems to do a lot of different things, or at least the people who filed a patent for it seem to think that it does. The next category is peptides. So these aren't amino acids, these are actual proteins consisting of several amino acids. So in it, it has 2 oligopeptides and 3 polypeptides. I'll go into what those mean in a second. Both are chains of amino acids linked by peptide bonds, as I said earlier, but oligopeptides are generally shorter than polypeptides. Polypeptides are often so long that they can't be absorbed into the skin, meaning that their primary function is often just to prevent moisture loss. But in this case, they're often signaling molecules, so they cause a chain of events to happen because of their presence, and since they're large, they will either need something to transport them into the cell, because the cell is not going to naturally absorb them, or they're going to have to attach to something on the surface of the cell, and then that thing is going to do other things inside the cell. So the first oligopeptide is called SH oligopeptide 1. It's also known as synthetic human epidermal growth factor, and it's 53 amino acids long. 53 amino acids is actually not that long for a protein, which is why it's classified as an oligopeptide as opposed to as a polypeptide, and it accelerates the growth of epidermal cells. That's what growth factors do. They make things go faster. It's used for anti-wrinkle and anti-aging purposes because it would promote cell renewal and cell turnover. The second oligopeptide is called SH oligopeptide 2, and it's also known as insulin-like growth factor 1. This one is 70 amino acids long, and it stimulates cell proliferation, wound healing, and keratinocyte proliferation. Your skin is made out of keratinocytes, by the way. Those are the cells that produce keratin. There wasn't really any more information on the mechanism whereby it stimulates cell proliferation. Okay, the first polypeptide is called SH polypeptide 1. This is also known as basic fibroblast growth factor, and it's a cell signaling protein, as I said earlier, and it stimulates fibroblast cell growth. So fibroblasts stimulate the synthesis of collagen and other connective tissues, and this would strengthen your skin. The second polypeptide is SH polypeptide 9. It's also known as vascular endothelial growth factor, and it stimulates the formation of blood vessels. This doesn't seem to have an obvious function in terms of helping moisturize or strengthen your skin, but if I were to speculate, I would say that it supports fibroblast growth by supplying the fibroblasts with nutrients so that they can help lead to the synthesis of more collagen. And then the third polypeptide is called SH polypeptide 11. Also known as acidic fibroblast growth factor. So this also stimulates fibroblast proliferation, like polypeptide 1, but it also stimulates keratinocyte proliferation. And this one is actually carried into the cells via lipid spheres. So I would guess that keratinocyte proliferation requires action within the cell, and that's why this one has a lipid transporter, so that it can actually enter the cell and do that part of its job. The next ingredient is called copper palmitoyl heptapeptide 14. So this also increases fibroblast proliferation, like some of our polypeptides earlier, and this thus increases collagen, which reduces wrinkles because it strengthens the skin. The next ingredient, is heptapeptide 15 palmitate. I couldn't find any evidence about this, but I did find a patent claiming its use for anti-aging purposes, so I would assume that it works via a similar mechanism as the previous things that I listed. The next ingredient is palmitoyl tetrapeptide 7. So this is a synthetic peptide, meaning that it's made in a lab, and it's only 4 amino acids long. It's super short. And it suppresses the production of interleukins. So interleukins are glycoproteins, and they're produced by leukocytes. Glycoproteins are just proteins with a carbohydrate group attached to them. So glyco kind of sounds like glucose. That can be your cue there. And leukocytes are white blood cells, so they're involved in the immune response. Interleukins trigger an inflammatory response. So by suppressing interleukins, it would suppress an inflammatory response. So you might ask why this is a good thing, because an inflammatory response is often part of an immune response, and it's meant to protect your body. However, unnecessary inflammation in the skin can lead to the formation of scar tissue, which is bad for your skin because it kind of undermines the connective tissue in your skin. By reducing this unnecessary inflammation, it would prevent the formation of scar tissue and actually strengthen your skin. The next ingredient is palmitoyl tetrapeptide 1. This is a synthetic fatty acid linked peptide, meaning that it's a protein with a fatty acid linked to it. So as a refresher, fatty acids have long hydrocarbon chains, which are non-polar, and then they have that polar head, which is presumably how it's attached to the peptide. And it strengthens the connective tissue holding the skin together. So if I were to speculate how this works, I would assume that the fatty acids can participate in the lipid bilayer because they have that non-polar hydrocarbon chain. And this can help strengthen the lipid bilayer within the connective tissue, which would strengthen your skin. But that's just me speculating. I couldn't find research about that to kind of support that mechanism. The next ingredient is linoleic acid. This is an omega-6 fatty acid, and omega acids are just polyunsaturated fatty acids, and you might hear that they're better for you than other fatty acids because they're polyunsaturated. So that basically means that they have lots of branching and they can't stack together as well as saturated fatty acids can, meaning that they're less dense, so they carry less calories. Linoleic acid is found in corn, safflower, and sunflower oils, and it's an emollient, which we discussed earlier, what that means. But I wanted to separate it because studies also show that it has anti-acne, anti-aging, anti-inflammatory qualities, and the deficiency of it can lead to slower healing times. The next ingredient is symphytum offic. I'm going to Google this. I was looking for a video that would help me pronounce it, but I couldn't find one. So I'm going to try again. Symphytum officinale callus culture extract. This is based on stem cells from comfrey roots. And it might have regenerative properties. I couldn't find any reliable sources to support that. So I'm not going to really say it, but I'm going to kind of say it. Okay, and then our final category, and I wanted to save this for last because it was kind of the most interesting to me, are the amino acids. So when I first picked this up and I looked at the ingredients, I literally saw just like individual amino acids listed out, which indeed it has. I wasn't sure if this was for real or if they just threw that in there because they thought that it would sound good. And I did some research and I think it actually is for real. There is a lot of research about the benefits of the topical application of individual amino acids. One group of articles shows that the topical application of amino acids can assist in accelerating healing, and this was tested on both rats and humans, which is very cool. And those articles are linked in case you want to check them out. And now I'm just going to go through the individual amino acids, and if I could find research about what they can do for your skin, then I'm going to talk about that, and if not, I'm just going to say what they are. So this contains alanine. It also contains arginine. Arginine may speed the healing of skin cell damage and wounds. So arginine might be one of the amino acids responsible for the findings in the articles that I mentioned earlier. It also contains glycine. Glycine may accelerate healing, similarly. It also contains histidine, which is an antifungal in one study, but it was also involved in an immunosuppressive response in another study. But the mechanisms between the two were both very complicated, I think too complicated to be worthwhile delve into in this video, and very different. So those two articles aren't necessarily contradictory, but it suggests that histidine can participate in very different pathways. Another amino acid that it contains is isoleucine. Isoleucine is known to increase tissue repair, especially in the case of eczema, so I don't want to generalize that too much because the study that I found was for eczema patients. And it also promotes the synthesis of antimicrobial peptides, which could also support how it could help you combat eczema. It also contains phenylalanine. It contains proline. Proline improved the appearance of crow's feet among about, I think, 170 female Japanese subjects in one study. The study didn't really go into a mechanism. It contains serine, threonine, valine, and aspartic acid. For those last four, I didn't really find any research. That's 10 articles right there supporting the idea that the topical application of amino acids can provide beneficial effects to your skin. So that's awesome. That means that, you know, a fair amount of thought and research went into this, and it might actually work a little bit better than other moisturizers that don't contain similar ingredients. I haven't noticed a big difference between this and other moisturizers that I've used. Like I said, it didn't work any kind of miracle on my skin, but I am happy using it. That's all I had prepared for today. Hopefully you learned something or you just kind of enjoyed watching me ramble on. Either way, thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you back for my next video.